celebrated this morning. We took up a little bit extra time during sharing and learning. That means I can talk a little bit less than I normally talk. And you may think that that disappoints me, but it doesn't. It makes me very happy. So we will get out of here in time for some coffee and cookies. But it's worthwhile, I think, to pause and just reflect on some of the images that have been presented to us this morning, shall I say, by the Spirit of God. Now, of course, it happened through conversations with Bev and Reese and Gay and other persons in these conversations. We're trying to figure out how to get it done. It was a team effort. But everything that happens for your benefit on the chance that you might get an insight about what really ought to matter most to you. Now, I have three thoughts at least, and I hope I get to all of them, but the one is the picture of the kids on Friday evening at Soup Song. This is such a wonderful project. This is Joy Davidson who began this, who had this vision, this dream. This was something she knew how to do. She could cook food and she liked serving people, and she realized that she had an opportunity to get others involved with her passion, and now they are feeding a fair number of people once a week. But not only are they feeding people, but they are equipping young people and helping them to discover how bringing good to other people is the best way to bring good to yourself. And at a very young age, if children are exposed to these kinds of volunteer activities, they will get a sense of its importance. And I would like you to know that right now in this town, the emphasis on youth is key. And that brings me to the second image, and that has to do with Reese and the Hanover School Division and the various persons who have been speaking about the right of every single person to belong in human society. Nobody is to be excluded because they are different. Now, this is not to say that everybody we welcome is perfect, but everybody we welcome is deserving of love and respect. If we simply take the image of the sun doesn't discriminate. The sun shines on that wealthy, power-seeking person who is exploiting multitudes just to get richer and richer. The sun doesn't care. When that person walks out, the sun warms them. But the sun also warms the beggar lady who, for some reason, perhaps her husband has died, perhaps her family has abandoned her, she's drifted out of society, she's now sitting on a street corner, and people walk past her with looks of contempt and disdain. And this is going to sound odd, but that look of contempt and disdain is often expressed by very religious people. And the question for me is, did they ever hear anything about Jesus? Did they ever hear that Jesus had the time to put his arm around a prostitute and say, there, girl, I know the folks don't treat you very well, but come on, let's have a cup of tea. Let me get to know you a little bit. And in this way, Jesus strengthened that prostitute against all of the adversity that she faced. The leper, the Samaritan. And in our time, the remarkable experience of persons coming out of closets where they've hidden their own true selves for so long. And coming out of closets takes a lot of courage. And it doesn't matter what kind of closet it is. Many of us are hiding ourselves away, not because we're gay or we're Samaritans or we're lepers or we're publicans, because we think maybe who I am is no good. Maybe who I am doesn't deserve to be respected and loved. Sorry, God loves. And the thing is, once we open to love, then we begin to be changed and we become servants of love. Our purpose in life is simply to let God's love shine. And I think Reese, for me, provides a fine example. I could speak about Micah, who I've come to admire from a distance because I don't know her well. We've only talked a bit, but you've heard her name. But Micah is a young woman who at various times came out of her safe place to say, I may not be who you think I am. I hope you're okay with that. And in very public ways, Micah expressed her identity and suggested that she too had a right to be loved and respected. And I appreciate Micah. I appreciate the young Hutterite boy who came out and the speech that he gave at the Pride March. I appreciate the letters of young people, including Reese. Reese wrote a very fine letter in which he made it plain that he was not himself a homosexual person, but he was a person who believed that all persons deserve to be respected. And he became what is known now as an ally, a supporter, an encourager. And at various times when Micah was to talk at the Hanover School Division, I would see Reese just standing close by her. And I knew that she was his friend. And I knew that he was her friend. And it didn't matter if he was a boy and a girl. It didn't matter what kind of sex they liked. What mattered was that she needed to be supported and encouraged, and he was there for her in that way. Now that is an example of what we are called to be as Christian people. We are not called to stand with the strong and the mighty. They do fine just the way they are. We are called to stand with the weak and the vulnerable, the despised and the forsaken of all kinds. And it shocks me as a theologian to come into a place like Steinbach, and I've seen this everywhere in exactly the same way. Christian people saying to poor people, you got to work your way up. And if you don't work your way up, you get exactly what you deserve. And then on Sunday morning, you go to church, and the preacher says, there's nothing you can do to win God's love. It's absolutely free. You can't earn salvation. But you poor person, until you get yourself together, you're not really wanted here. Now, nobody would ever say that right out loud. But you say it with your body posture. You say it with the way you look. You say it in the words you speak. I was in the food bank one day, and somebody who was quite well off in volunteering, which is to be commended, but a small comment. These poor people are always trying to take advantage of us. And my response? Yeah, that's nothing. You should see how the bankers are trying to take advantage of us. You see, I know you're deep in debt, but come on, get some more money. See? Why? Why aren't we going around saying, look at those bankers, they're all trying to take advantage. Apologies to any banker. You see, we're all stuck in the game. And we're all stuck in the game of thinking that you need to earn respect. Sorry. Jesus is the one who respects people who are despised by the decent people. And in a way, Jesus says, those who think they're decent aren't decent at all. And those who think they're indecent, they're accepted, they're loved, they're welcome. And the most pointed story about that is about the wealthy man. Every day he leaves his home and he walks past this poor beggar sitting by his gate. And he goes to do what he does. How does he get to be a wealthy man? He enjoys his reputation. I'm sure he's a very charitable giver. In fact, he may have had a reputation of having funded many charitable institutions. But the real, live, living person beside his gate, he ignored. Easier to write a check than to get involved. You see? Now, I am thrilled as an older person with what is happening in the younger generation. Here, there, and everywhere. I've been in the East Coast, I've been in the West Coast, I've been in the Prairie. And in every place, I've had the joy of meeting young people who want the world to be different. And I'm not saying that you folks who have been supporting the church all of your lives need to get out there in the streets with signs and doing stuff like that. But in any way that you have available, encourage them. Support them. Don't side with the powerful who want to suppress them. When young people go out into the streets and say, we're tired of the way the land is being polluted for profit. Don't say, let's get the police and get these young people out of the streets. This quest for justice, this quest for environmental responsibility, this quest for health for everybody. Let's all just stay home, watch TV, and be brainwashed. Now, I'm speaking with a great deal of passion, because my hunger and thirst has been for justice. And what I am so tired of, and if you read history, you will find this to be the case, is the great mass of people who sit still and do nothing while the world is being ruined in the name of profit and power. And you may say, well, what can I do? Well, you can pray. That is to say, you can start changing the way your brain thinks. Dear God, I've been so preoccupied with what concerns me. Help me shift my attention. Help me to notice the widow down the street who's so alone. Help me to bring her some cookies. Help me to offer to mow her lawn. You see, there are so many ways of making a difference. But the key one I would like to emphasize today as we gather here as a congregation, let's not say, how can we keep doing what we've been doing all the time? But let's say, how can we do something different so that this town knows that there's an advocate. There's somebody, some bodies who say, no more of this oppression of the poor, no more oppression of the despised, no more oppression of the outcast. Rather, let's do what we can to make them feel welcome, accepted, and loved. There are two Bible texts that we've read this morning. The one is about the judgment of God. And if you go to most of the churches in this city, that story will be told very differently than I'm going to tell it to you now. They'll tell you that unless you accept the blood of Jesus, you are going to hell. It doesn't matter what you do with your life. Jesus didn't talk about heaven and hell. In this parable, Jesus says, how you regard those who are left out is what matters. Those who stop to give a thirsty person a cup of cold water on this side. Those who walk past saying, I've got no time for that, on that side. Where do you fit? And the one thing I want to be absolutely clear, and I have to always be cautious because Mr. Dennis is very strong advocating for mission and service. But one of the things that has happened in the church is that the preacher preaches a sermon about how important it is for you to get involved, and then we have a message, a minute for mission, which suggests if you write a check now and then, that's more than enough. It's not. You cultivate the Spirit of Christ in you. Take time to study. Take time to read and converse about what's happening in history. Stop being distracted and diverted by all the offers of the marketplace. They're designed to entice you away from your responsibility as a citizen. They're designed to make you into a consumer, a slave to market values. Now, I said I'd be short, and I'm going to stop there. As you can imagine, I'm just getting wound up. My bottom line, thanks be to God for every young person who wants to make a difference. Every young person who wants to change the world and make it a better place. Let's say in our hearts, I may not understand homosexuality, but I stand behind Micah for her courage. I stand behind the young Hutterite man for his courage. And believe me, I've been reading these letters, and these are very intelligent people. They deserve our respect. They deserve our support. They deserve our love. Thank you, Reese, for being an example of your generation with us today. Amen.